Okay, it's time to start doing some filling. I'm going to take just some epoxy or some resin. I keep calling it epoxy. It's fiberglass resin. Fill in this gap all the way around. I climbed underneath. I don't know if I can show you, but you can see light through there. So what I did was I took some packing tape, regular old packing tape, because resin doesn't stick to it, and I covered up that gap on the inside. Also discovered that 2 of my screws didn't even go into the wood, but it's still nice and sturdy because of the sides. Sides are screwed in, the other 3 screws are in place. But I'll get this gap filled, and I think I'll just remove those screws altogether because they won't really be necessary once the gap is filled with resin. I am going to use some chopped strand fibers mixed in with the resin to thicken it up just a little bit, and then I can kind of push it down in the gap there and give it some good structural properties. So it's not just resin. The tape will keep the resin from flowing down, which is actually up since it's upside down, and keep everything nice and clean in there. I've got a couple of gaps I need to fill, but everything else is pretty much tight up against the floor. So I don't know that I'll have a chance to go all the way around at this point. And I think in these smaller gaps that you can see there, I don't know that I can actually get chopped strand. I don't know that I can actually get chopped strand fiber into those gaps, but this one at the back definitely will take it, and it'll be structurally sound at that point as well. Chopped strand fiber does a great job of creating structural strength, so I'll get that done and let it cure. I did order my 6-inch tape last night. That'll be here this weekend, so hopefully I'll be able to start doing the fiberglass covering along the sides. I need to go get some additional fibrous filler so that I can take care of the mess that I made right here. So I may do that this afternoon. But anyway, I'll start doing the mixing of the epoxy. Ooh, watch out. Mixing up the epoxy, and I'll see if I can set that right there, because that'll show the workspace, right? Yeah. No music today, because I let my neighbor borrow my Bluetooth speaker for in here. So I'm just gonna listen to me, I guess. I'm opening up the bag of chopped strand fibers. That's what it looks like. It's just a bag of fibers, basically fiberglass, chopped up fiberglass, about 1/4 inch long each piece. So I'll just take a little bit of that, sprinkle it in the mix, start spreading it out. This is very easy to do, very quick, and works like a charm. I'm not putting any Cabasil in this mixture. Doesn't need to be that thick. I actually need it to be a little bit on the thinner side anyway, so that it penetrates that gap as deeply as possible. If I put Cabasil in it and thicken it up, it's just not going to flow. But like I said, the flow will be stopped by the tape that I put on the inside. So I'm just going to mix up 6 tablespoons, just because it's the easiest mixture to measure out with the hardener. I'll probably end up with some extra, and I'll see if maybe I can fit some of this with the chopped strand fiber into some of the other gaps. We'll see. I think that was 6 tablespoons I was talking while I was pouring, but where is my teaspoon, my 1/4 teaspoon? And that one is empty. 1/4 teaspoon of hardener. I'll mix this up first, get a good mix, and then I'll add the chopped strand fibers in. Okay, that's mixed. Now, I'll take chopped strand fiber. Dump those in. So what this does is it makes the thick mixture thicker, but it'll still flow. And now it's got structural property. I am forcing it down into the gap using the little popsicle stick thing I've got here. Perfect size for this gap. So the strands are getting down inside, and then once this all cures, of course, it'll be super duper strong. Should penetrate the gap nicely. All right, well, this is starting to set up. This batch is done. Here's what it looks like. Filled that gap nicely. I pushed chop strand fibers down into the gap all the way across. And it's going to be a nice smooth transition as well. I think I might actually put some wax paper over this just because. Less sanding later. I'll show you one more time what I just did to the gap. Just ran some wax paper all the way down just to make that a nice smooth transition. And this should prevent me from having to really do any sanding. I'll probably have to do a little bit along the curve just to make sure it's smoothed out. But otherwise, I think that's going to turn out really nice, and it will be nice and super strong. If the rest of this stuff, the rest of these gaps, I don't know yet. If I'm going to do that with fibrous filler, or if I'll just mix up a little bit more epoxy, a little bit thinner. I just want to make sure that the 6-inch tape, when I go to install it, has a good base and a good solid base, a good curve to go around. I think the only way to do that is definitely fill these gaps. But that looks really good. I'm really happy with the way the transom turned out. You know, like I said, that'll be super solid. And I can take the screws out later on. Until next time. All right, so today I went out and grabbed some additional Bondo glass, which is the kind of greenish brown colored filler that I've been using to fill in the areas around the bottom of the hull that got chipped away when I was routing. So this is all nice and solid on that side. Some of the stuff is a little bit more fresh. That was a nice big chunk that was missing. And then I went ahead and put a fillet down both sides of the stem that will get sanded down nice and smooth before I put the fiberglass on. So went all the way around. Anywhere there was missing pieces of plywood, I went ahead and put some filler in there just to make sure that I've got a nice smooth surface to attach the fiberglass to. It's getting pretty close to being ready to sand. Didn't really have any reason to film this part. It's just mixing it up and putting it on. This is the stuff that I'm using. Bondo glass. It's very sticky. This stuff that's in here, it's green. This stuff gets mixed up with this hardener. Turns a kind of a reddish brown color when it cures. Coming back here to the back of the tugboat, the other day I did fill in the gap here with chopped strand fibers, and it is solid as can be. So this is ready to be fiberglassed over. I'm going to take these screws out because the hull is now, or the transom is now one piece with the bottom of the boat. So got a good solid transom, and that'll be very nice once the fiberglass goes on. I did get the roll of 6-inch tape, but now I'm going to do a little bit of sanding get all this ready for fiberglass, and I'm not going to video that, the sanding part, just because it's boring and doesn't do anything but make noise. Okay, so now I'm going to take the 6-inch tape and start laying it out. Alright, so I'm going to start at the transom. I'm going to lay out the tape that goes across the back here, and I'm going to notch it for the keels. I'm going to bring it right up to the edge. I'm not going to overlap it around the corner. Just bring it right up to the edge, and then I will overlap this one as it comes around. And then I'll do this side, the vertical side, after I flip it back over. Right side up. I've got plenty, 114 feet there, which is more than enough to do all the sides that I need to do. In case anyone's wondering where I got this glass, best place I found it was on Amazon. Almost everybody that sells this stuff sells it in 50-yard chunks, and depending on where you're looking, you will see it priced anywhere from $50 to $190 I found yesterday. Now, I'm sure there's probably some variance in quality. I don't know. I feel like I've always had really good luck with buying things on Amazon. I don't want to say regardless of where it's made. I don't know where this glass was made. It could be US, it could be China, it could be Europe, I don't know. 50 yards on Amazon, it was $26. Alright, so this is ready to go. I'm just going to do the transom tonight, I think, because I just want to make sure that this is going to turn out okay before I go working around the entire boat. I think it's going to be fine, but just want to be sure. So for this tape, I'm actually going to brush it on first, and then I'm going to put the tape down, and then I'll brush over the top of the tape. That's called priming. I didn't prime the insides of the boat before I put the fiberglass on. It's not structural, it's just to make it look nice and sturdy. But all the tapes will get primed, and I'll probably prime the outside of the hull before I finish fiberglassing the sides. Fiberglass tape does have an edge of stitching, which keeps it nice and straight without fraying, and that'll create a little bit of a ridge. I forgot to take these screws out, so. Priming the wood, and now I'll take one side of this. You notice I'm not using gloves tonight. This is fairly quick work. You know, if I get a little bit of epoxy on my fingers, big deal. I'm not working with very much material here, so I'm going to start in the middle, push it forward, try to push all the wrinkles in the fabric towards the openings here by the keel. Well, I have a few little drips across the back. Not a big deal. In fact, the wax paper might even take care of that. Down this way because one piece of wax paper will not make the curve of the transom back here. So I'm going to do it in several pieces, overlap them slightly. Wax paper's down, and I'll smooth it all out. Most of the air bubbles out. I'm really glad that I decided to only do the back tonight. because this took a little longer than I thought it would, which is okay. I just didn't want to be in the mindset of having to get the next section done. I'm going to stop right here, let this cure overnight, and hopefully tomorrow I'll work on the sides. I'm kind of wondering if I'm going to have to, I was going to try to do this all in one piece, but it might be better to run a piece up to the keel and split it and then keel to the front. I think that's probably what I should do. I move this back over because Brittany won't be terribly happy if she has to squeeze through here. Okay, well, come back tomorrow and see what I got. All right, so I took the wax paper off the transom this morning. Everything looks really good, nice and solid. No real sharp edges. I did round off the corners just a little bit, but everything looks really, really nice. Even the leading edge here where I thought was going to be a little bit of dust in there from just running a quick piece of paper, sandpaper over the top here. It's nice and smooth. I was a little bit worried that this front edge wasn't going to lay down nicely, but it's full of resin and there's a nice smooth transition there. So I've got the next piece of fiberglass laid out for the other side. That's what I'm gonna do first. I'm not gonna video this part. It's the same thing I did back here, but I will be back when it's all laid down and show you the result. Got wax paper all over the 6-inch tape that I put on the corner of the hull all the way to the back. This turned out okay. It's not great. There's actually going to be some spots here. I cannot get that flattened. I didn't want to cut the fiberglass because I didn't want overlaps. Looking at it now, I probably should do that on the other side. So that's what the interesting thing about doing one side before the other is you will learn a lesson along the way. Happened when I was doing the sides as well. So I think when I do that side, I will probably just make some slits along the way here. Because what's going to happen is these are going to end up being high spots, and I'm going to have to cut them out with a X-Acto knife. Just cut the glass out where it's sticking up, and then sand it smooth. And then after that, I might put some Bondo filler over it just to smooth it out. It's not going to make any difference. The main thing that we're doing here is sealing the seam here around the edge of the hull. So not worried about this area here. I'm gonna have to cut it out and fill it, sand it later. Like I said, the primary point here is to get the corner nice and sealed, and it is looking that way nicely all the way to the back. I think these air bubbles are actually in the wax paper, not the weave, but I might as well smooth it out as I see them. But it's looking good. Give it a few hours and I'll come back and see how it looks. Hopefully we're good. For this side, I decided to cut notches in the fiberglass, so as it makes this curve here, these pieces will just overlap like that. There will be a little bit of a pinch, but I'll try to get that smoothed out as nicely as I can. Also notched the keel right here. That'll sit down a lot nicer than it did over there. I'm afraid that's not going to turn out all that great. So put a notch about every 12 to 18, well, 15 to 18 inches the rest of the way down. So I will get the wood primed just as I did the other side, and then start laying this one down, and then that'll be it for the seams on the bottom. I will have to put a little piece around the front here. I'm going to measure that out and try to do that at this time as well before I go flipping it over. So we'll see what it looks like when I get back. All right, so to wrap this segment of the build up, I'll just give you some close-ups of how the 6-inch tape turned out. It's very, very nice on this side. The other side I had to do a couple of corrections. This video is actually being shot after I have coated the entire bottom in another coat of resin. This has now a total of 3 layers of resin on it. So it had a layer of resin to begin with, then fiberglass, and now another coat of resin over the whole thing. So it's gonna remain shiny like this until I paint it. Not worried about the shininess of this right now. I will do a test section of paint just to be sure it sticks before I go coating the whole thing. If I need to rough it up, I will. I'll just do that with a sander real fast. But everything looks really, really nice on both sides. The corrections I made on this side are right here. Had to cut out a piece of fiberglass cloth that didn't get laid down. There's another right there and another right there. With the layer of resin over all of it, it'll be nice and smooth. It looks really nice. So really, really happy with how this turned out. And after this cures overnight tonight, I will be flipping this thing back over, right side up, and I'll start working on whatever's next. Honestly, don't know what's next. I think I probably have to do the stem. So I'll be sanding this down to make it nice, and it's a pretty nice uniform fillet right now, but I'm gonna make sure and sand it smooth so that you won't be able to see that after it's painted. I'm pretty sure the next step of the instructions is to get the stem covered with 6-inch tape. So that'll probably be next, but I'm gonna flip it over and do that after it's right side up. So looks really nice, and I will sign off until the next video. Have a good one, everybody. Hope you enjoyed watching. Hit the subscribe button, send me some comments, and I'll keep making videos. See ya.